Hi, everyone. This is Eva. We are getting started in just a minute, and I wanted to invite you in as we are getting started on this Promptcraft workshop. So welcome. Hi, everyone. This is Eva Haining. We are going to be getting started in just a moment into this workshop on Promptcraft. So I will be diving through about a 90-minute intro to how different tools work, including generative art tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. We're going to look at web tools like Dream Studio as well. And I hope that you will let me know in the chat if you are able to join us. I'm going to wait just a few minutes while everyone gets started here. And I want to make sure that for those who might have gone to Zoom, that they are also here. So welcome and thank you. We are just getting started in a moment, and I appreciate you joining us here. Thanks, everyone. We are about to get started with this Promptcraft workshop today. My name is Eva Haining, and thank you for joining me here. I am going to pull off this and welcome. Hi, everyone. Let's make sure that there is no one waiting for us in the other room. Now, as I mentioned, we are just moving this workshop from Zoom into StreamYard. So I want to make sure that everyone who is looking for us is able to be there. So we're going to be in both places for just a few minutes, and I hope that you are finding us here and joining us. Like I said, this workshop is specifically part of a series on reality craft. And hi, for those of you I haven't met yet, this is Eva Haining, and this is a first in a series of workshops on Promptcraft getting started. If you are concerned, if you're not in the right place for some reason, I hope you will please reach out and let me know, as I know some of you were trying to figure out how to get into this workshop today. So we are getting started in just a moment, and thank you for your patience as we do make sure everyone else has made it here today. So it looks like our Zoom messages are not, all right, we're going to end this. I think we're okay on Zoom, but I do want to make sure because we've had a number of challenges with folks unable to get into these events, unfortunately, for one reason or another. So we're going to make sure that we fix this and take care of all of you who are trying to get in for the first time to this workshop. Now, again, my name is Eva Haining. I have been a producer and a creator for over 20 years, starting off with interactive media.
Recording in progress.
And we are going to see if we can make sure that we've got everyone here. All right. It looks like we did miss a few people in Zoom. So we are going to try and make sure we get everyone over to the Zoom room, from the Zoom room to the StreamYard room. So hi, Susan. We had a challenge with moving the Zoom to StreamYard, and I'm going to send you the link right now so that you have that. And thank you for your patience as I thought we had caught everyone, and apparently we missed a few folks.
I just literally signed up right now.
You're fine. No, Dana, you are in the right place. StreamYard is where we are today, and we did have a couple of folks come into the Zoom, so that's where I just want to make sure we catch everyone. All right. So, and thank you all for your patience as we get everyone going here. All right. All right. So for those of you who are in Zoom, we are in StreamYard today. We have moved this session to StreamYard, and that is so that we can have a larger group, but also get a high definition recording for the future. So if you are in StreamYard if you're in Zoom right now, I am sending you a StreamYard link. StreamYard is where we are doing these webinars from here on out. And so Tyson, Susan, please feel free to join me there, and great to see you. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up for just a few more minutes, but we won't be here. So thank you. All right. And I hope the rest of you who are, we're going to go ahead and end that. Don't you just love technology? All right, now we can actually get started here. Thanks for joining me. And Dana, I appreciate your patience as we were making sure everyone got started. Yes, you can use that chat, and I hope you will today, as we are going to be chatting together. And it looks like some of you have the participation information straight from StreamYard, and some of you are watching. And I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and put up a link. And those of you who have signed up for the workshop, if you want to join as a participant, you will be welcome to do so. So that link is right here. I'm going to pull that up for you right now. If that's not the link you're on and you want to participate today, either by webcam or by sharing your screen and questions, you can do that. There is no requirement to do that, but that is one option for you. I just wanted to make sure you all know about it. So if you are watching in the audience, hi and welcome. If you are webinar participants versus viewers, we are testing out StreamYard's webinar technology today, and this is our first time doing that, and I appreciate your patience as we decide how to get things working well. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Evo Haining. We are going to be going through a little bit of a Promptcraft getting started workshop here. And I'm going to take you through a little bit of a process that I use in my own process development, but also how typically I have found it helps to work with iteration when you are developing your own generative works. So we're going to be primarily talking about Midjourney today. We're going to talk a little bit about Stable Diffusion and other tools as well. And we're going to look at both web-based and Discord-based generative work, primarily 2D visual art. Now, we can certainly take questions on other types of generative work as well. And I hope you will figure out where the private chat is. So hi, if you cannot see where private chat is, let me know, because I do get your comments, everyone, and you are welcome to be engaged in that way as well. So please feel free to put your questions in the comment line. And if you would like to be a part of the streaming at some point or share your screen, that can also be arranged. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the slides. As I mentioned, this is specifically Reality Craft 1 on Promptcraft, learning how to work with your own vision and revision using tools such as versioning, remixing, and we're going to talk a little bit about the types of basic introductory level modifications you can do to go from crafting your first prompt to getting something closer to your vision. So we are going to go through styles and lighting types. We're going to go through some prompt resources, weights and measures. And I want to encourage you to go ahead and do this at home with your own tools. That can be on the web, and that can be in Discord. If you're already a Midjourney basic user, you should have some images to work with. Now, for those of you who are just getting started, okay, we didn't get that participant link quite quickly enough. All right, I'm going to put that back up for us here, and you are welcome. Any of you who are joining this workshop as viewers who want to jump in and screen share later, you can jump in as participants as well. Thank you for participating and for being super clear about your needs there. All right, so I'm going to be jumping between Discord and our window here in the slides and in StreamYard. So I want you to just shout out if you need me to stop or slow down at any time. But basically what we're going to do is talk about how to go through that vision process and then what that can look like. So I'm going to pull that banner off. I hope you got that, Sam. Let me know if you did not get that link, and I can try and cut and paste it as well into the private chat. So if you are joining us for the first time and participatory workshops like this may be new to you, feel free to chime in at any time. It's okay to stop me. This is a relatively small group of us today, so we don't have to be too formal about it. So, Reality Craft, just to give you a little bit of background, I am in Design Lab and Gallery here in Oakland, California. This is space to do concept development, to create your own works, whether that's AR, VR, XR, or something in the story world, something in print media. We do combine physical art making with generative and digital works. When we're talking about Promptcraft, we're talking about a process of writing and realizing those generative works. And so Promptcraft is language, but it is also using the tools of the digital landscape. So that could be images, numbers, that could be image prompts, but also things like emoji. So we're going to talk a little bit about the creative ways you can play with this as well. And can you please post the Discord link? Okay, so we're going to be screen sharing from Discord very shortly, and I'm going to take you through that. But if you are just getting started with Midjourney, you can start at midjourney.com. Now, if that it's going to want you to become a Discord user if you are not already, because Midjourney works with the Discord server directly. So we're going to take you through that, and I'm going to screen share from there shortly. All right. So when we're talking about generative work, there are any number of tools. Like I mentioned, this is primarily going to be discussing Midjourney today, but we're also going to discuss open source tools like Stable Diffusion, DALL-E from OpenAI, and we will have a moment to discuss sort of the future of this space as well, and a little bit of comparative analysis, for example, when you might want to use one toolkit over another. So to Susan's question earlier, if you are not yet in these tools and you want to get started, there are two different paths you can choose today. Either sign up for a free Midjourney account to get started. You're going to be able to generate, I think, somewhere between 15 and 25 images in most of these tools before you are asked to pay for something. So keep that in mind. Whenever you are using one of these new generative tools, they're going to give you a certain number of images or credits to use. And think wisely about how you want to do that. You might be able to try 4, 5, 6 different tools to get further along. So either jump in Midjourney, that is going to be tied to your Discord account, and it's going to use the Discord interface and servers. And I'm going to show you how that works in a second. Or if you're not in Midjourney, if you're not in Discord, you can use diffusion.land, which is a URL that we're going to look at a little bit later on. And for specifically looking at Stable Diffusion versions, you can use beta.dreamstudio.ai. Again, you're going to get probably 15 images out of both of those tools before you're asked to pay for them. All right, so we're going to get started in Midjourney. And as I mentioned, this is time to jump into Discord. So I'm going to bring in my Discord feed here. And Midjourney works a little bit differently than most of the web tools that we use in Promptcraft. So you're currently looking at a Midjourney direct message or a DM with a bot. When I'm generating new works, work directly with the bots because the DM I find much easier than dealing with the noise of Discord. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but all you need to know right now is that when you are first thrown into Discord and Midjourney is going to be extremely loud and busy because you're basically imagining in a public space where lots and lots of other people are also imagining at the same time. So you may not be able to find your work and it might feel like you're being inundated. So one quick technique, and I'm going to take you through this very quickly, is we are going to be imagining things in a direct message. If you are a Discord user, feel free to chime in if that makes sense, but I'm going to talk you through it right now. So here I am in Discord, and I'm going to pull up my Discord server. Now, you can see on this side, on the far left side, I have my different servers, and the top one here is Midjourney. Now, when you join Midjourney for the first time and you go to this, it doesn't want to, oh, look at you. You're going to be tricky. Well, that's fun. All right. I'm going to share one more time from Discord because it decided to freeze on us. That was weird. All right, so now we are back in. Generally, I have found Midjourney has some quirks that are great for people who are comfortable in Discord, and it doesn't work for everyone. And so, if you are finding that the Discord nature of this is difficult or noisy, that's where I'm going to recommend to go to the DM method. So, it doesn't change a lot of the interface, it does change how much of it you have to deal with. So, we're going to walk through a little bit of that. When you come into Discord, you're coming into a very noisy server that has, as you can see in this second column where it says announcements, trial support, newbies, you are generally thrown into a newbie room when you get started. And you can see everyone here is doing what we call imagine, that hyphen imagine. So I'm going to add this back to our stream, and I apologize. I got to give you the right screen share, otherwise it doesn't work for you at all. So when walking through this here, let's take you through one more time. Left column in Discord, your servers, the one with the boat there is Midjourney. But what we find when we're here is that it is everyone generating everything at once. It can be very noisy. So instead of dealing with this, and this in general, it's interesting as a space to go and look for examples on how to do better prompts. For example, go directly to the Midjourney server and try things with other people. However, when you're doing your own work, I want you to try and do basically what we call the DM method. And the DM method is in your direct messages in Discord, which I will go back to the top of my screen, the top left, and I will go to my direct messages in Discord. And here I have an ongoing DM thread with the Midjourney bot. That gives me a place to just focus on my work. It is semi-public in that it could be found, but it is not in a public space, meaning it probably won't be found. So this gives me a little bit more freedom to create. And over time, you can begin to track your work a lot better if you're thinking about basically you're having a one-on-one conversation with the Discord bot. So I want you to tell me if that makes sense, and let me know which questions are coming up for you. But if you are trying to use Discord and you're finding that the experience inside the Midjourney server is too much for you, then try this method. And we're going to zoom in and look at what this method looks like up close. But I want to be able to take you through what each of those menus is going to do separately. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on a tighter view on the screen. And that's going to give us a little bit better information in view so that you're going to see better what's happening. So let's see, questions. I want to make sure I stop and let me know if you are stuck for any reason, and please jump in on the comments and chat if you missed anything, and I will do my best to back up. As we are in our imagine prompt setting. So remember I had on the screen a moment ago, this is the baseline of what you would type in Midjourney specifically to start a prompt, to craft a new prompt. So you are going to type /imagine, give it a space, and then prompt : Now, this isn't necessary in Stable Diffusion or OpenAI, DALL-E. You're going to find that that is sort of baked in. So this is specific to Midjourney and it's specific to Discord. But what that looks like when I go through here, and I'm just going to do it with you really fast, is to imagine, and you can autocomplete if you want to. And so this piece that I'm doing right here is an alchemist embroidery piece. So what I'm trying to do is get detail imagined of embroidery of maybe an old alchemist text or textile. So by typing the words I'm looking for, that is the baseline of how to develop that prompt. Now, obviously, If you click on DM, it asks if you want to add a friend. Yeah, you can go ahead and friend the Discord bot. It's not going to hurt you to do that. And that way you can just keep coming back to your conversation over time and just treat it like any other conversation that you might be in. So as you can see, I am in a relatively slow mode right now. When you start off in Midjourney, you are given the choice of whether to work in fast mode or slow mode. You are also given advanced tools around privacy if you choose to pay for them. Now, as a basic user, you are being put in a sort of slower mode, and you are given a certain number of images to start with, and then you can buy more. And those are either done through packages, like $10, $15, or done like unlimited for $30 a month. So you can see it's taking about a minute. A generation on average is somewhere in the range of 50 seconds. And what's happening here is it's doing it in percentages. So we're at 93% generated now. And when that image is finished, I'm going to see something that looks like U1, U2, U3, U4, V1, V2, V3, V4. So that is what we see right there. Now I'm going to describe for you what those U's and V's are, and then how you would work with them. Basically, once you get this kind of generation, you're getting 4 sample images that you might want to see. Now I can decide maybe I like all of these images, or maybe I only like one, and I want to see it in greater detail. So in this case, I would like to see 1 and 4 in greater detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off of this close-up, and I'm going to click U1, which is upscale, and U4. So I'm going to upscale the first picture and the fourth picture. Now they go 1, 2, 3, 4. So top row 1, 2, bottom row 3, 4. Now let's talk about what the V stands for here, variation. So an upscale is adding detail to that image. So I'm going to get an image back that is roughly 500 pixels that is going to start filling in the gaps of all of the detail that I might want in that image. I might not like the original image, however. I might want something that is a variation or a remix on it. That's where variations come in. So a variation, the V's here, can include adding other words to it. So maybe I like this third image, but I don't want it to look like a castle. Or maybe I like this fourth image, but I want it to look more Gothic. So I'll take V4 and make a variation to say Gothic. And by giving those extra descriptive words, I am basically creating what is called a remix. That remix is creating variation with detail and sort of spinning it in a new direction. So when you're starting with Promptcraft, you can start with something pretty simple, maybe 3 to 5 words, a couple of emoji if you're thinking along those lines, or an image prompt with a very clear but simple description. And then you can get those variations. And those variations are where a lot of the magic happens. It's an iteration, not necessarily in the first generation. So here's the first generation upscale I got from that U1 image. I like the embroidery detail here where the water looks like it's actually embroidered. That's very pretty. I might want to use that as a story picture, right? Same here. Maybe I like something about it, but I don't like other things that maybe I can refine in future variations. So working with upscaling and variation, you can choose to kind of begin to take images in specific directions. I hope that makes sense. And I want you to step back and ask me questions along the way. So if any of that did not make sense, we're going to step back just a little bit and I'm going to talk through the slides as well. I wanted you to see, however, that we got our first batch of variations back. And those variations, again, this is a riff on one of those 4 images, and it took it in a more Gothic way. Maybe you like one version of Gothic more than another. I think I'm into these bottom more than the top because of the palette that I'm using. You might need to keep refining and keep refining until you get to what you are imagining, because obviously the AI is giving you 4 images at a time. And if you're not giving it a lot of detail, it's going to fill in the detail with a lot of randomness. Let's say you don't want that randomness. You can add more detail. So in this case, I might give it a lot more detail, and I can say certain types of things I want to see in this scene. So that could say books, library, monks, making wine, life in a monastery, detail. And then there are other ways I can refine this. So maybe I want it to look of a certain time period. I could say 1402 era or something like 1402 year. There are certain ways you can use cinematic or other types of photography prompts here as well, or lighting cues. So I could choose to have this look like something out of Unreal Engine, for example, if I want to have something that might have more of a video game asset look or a video game component look. So all of those, what we would consider style refining pieces, are part of what we would consider variation. And those variations are a big part of how we put together a whole text prompt. So what we're going through right now are sort of the 3 elements of a prompt in Midjourney. We're going to talk about images shortly, but this first part, the text prompt, is that scene as you are imagining it in your mind. And it could be 3 words, it could be 25 words. You can get very detailed here, but you really need to put the crux of what you're aiming for in the first few words. That includes anything related to the hand or the style by which you want it made. So that can include any number of style words that we're going to talk about later. And then we're going to talk a little bit about parameters, things like weights and measures as well. So how many of you have tried writing a prompt now? If you want to click something or say something, what was the parameter cue? We're going to go through some of the parameters in just a moment. So I want to, we'll get there, I promise. So when we're talking about the baseline, think about juxtapositions of words that are not only nouns, but that might be more abstract concepts, or that might be a feeling or a vibe or an emotion. Because when you're combining things, you're more likely to see something interesting come out than if you're just giving it the specific objects you're looking for. Now, there are reasons for that, but it's also psychological, and it's an interesting way to experiment. For example, this is an experiment in surrealism. Obviously, surrealism is really rich, and you can try the exact same prompt using 4, 5, 6 different styles if that supports your work. I think it works to use words not just like surrealism, but photography or photo. Certain types of words will define how real you want it to look. And photo or photorealistic, photograph, those all slightly mean something different to Midjourney, but they are all useful if you're trying to get something that actually looks closer to a photograph versus closer to a painting or art. So when we're thinking about those variation words, I want you to be thinking about not just the sort of styles of art, but be thinking about things that might qualify a type of brushstroke, a type of lighting, words that might speak to a palette. So a word that I might use for some things would be prismatic. Prismatic will look like something coming out of a prism, and I get interesting rainbow effects. Or full spectrum, vibrant. All of these words mean color spectrums as well. And you can tune to different color spectrums in part by the language you use, but also through emoji if you need to. So there's ways in which you can try and shift it to say that I want a dark blue background, that sort of thing. And I want you to think about how you put those elements together, especially using the commas in the prompt, so that the AI can read, we're talking about basic machine learning. You got to make it super simple and not, you want to use words that are generally positive in nature, not negative. The words that are sort of negative weighted, you're going to put at the very end. So you really need to describe things in the positive words. And you need to think about if somebody is holding something, if the subject of this picture you're looking for is what they're holding, you need to say that first and then step back to the person and then step back to the scene. Because basically it is painting from the first 2 or 3 words in the prompt first. And so you want to think about what is in the foreground, what is in the middle, what is in the background, because otherwise you're going to get these sort of collage-like images, or it's going to be something that has a very simple layout. You may not be trying to get to something simple. So I want to speak to a little bit of how you can build on the complexity using variation. So parameters. Susan asked about the parameter queue. There are a lot of different parameters, and we're going to go through a few of those. Midjourney has a whole Git book that documents what all of those parameters do. We're going to go through a few that refer to image weight, your aspect ratio, which are both here IW and AR. You're seeing hyphen no farms, for example, which is how you would do a negative weight, or how to bring something out of a picture, tell it not to paint farms, for example. So the parameters you're going to make sure are at the very end of your prompt. And you're also going to notice that these parameters might not work in V4. So I'm going to show you a really quick trick here, because you may find that you need to toggle your settings in Midjourney in order to get the best effect. Now, version 4 of Midjourney has been out for about a month now. This is the second time we're doing this workshop in version 4. But to be honest, Midjourney is changing rapidly, like every 2 months, I would say. So we need to be sort of thinking about, obviously the tools are going to continue to change, and I want you to know how to modify your system to be able to work with those tools. So what you're seeing here are the Midjourney settings. And these are things that you can toggle in order to get a higher quality image out of certain types of prompts. So for example, what I just toggled, I went from Midjourney version 4 to MJ Test Photo. MJ Test Photo, if I'm trying to do something that is very photorealistic, MJ Test Photo might be a better choice. Each of these are using different data sets. They are coded slightly differently. Photorealism might come out better in MJ Test Photo. But in most cases, you're going to find that MJ version 4 is going to deliver highest quality results, especially around anatomically correct humans, animals, and also understanding context between things. And context between things is something that often breaks down, even in Stable Diffusion and in DALL-E as well. Context is extremely hard to get. So this is where you're going to need to experiment, not just with how you form the prompt word by word and where the commas go, but how you describe those words. Words like holding and hand are very tricky. And there are certain ways to get better hands holding something, but you are going to find you might need to do 30 to 50 images to get something that looks realistic and right for you. So back to settings, you can change from V4 to different types of test versions or previous versions. High quality, I do, it's giving it a bit more of a pass on it. It costs more, but I am on a $30 unlimited plan right now. I pay $30 a month for my Midjourney account. You can see here the different types of upscales. Currently using regular upscale is delivering the best results in V4. Your mileage may vary. Light upscale and beta upscale work very well in V3, but they don't work as well in V4. And some of the activities that would have required V4 or V3 2 weeks ago may have changed in the last 2 weeks. So this is where staying attuned to the Midjourney server and to their news channel will help you stay abreast of the developments. Now, the last piece I wanted to show you here is public mode, private mode. So you have to pay for private mode, otherwise you're in public mode. That's just one of those things. And if you're a storyteller trying to do something in private, I would recommend paying for and getting everything done privately. What I just showed you in terms of adding words to your variable, when you're doing a variation and you're adding variables to the prompt, that is what we call a remix. And so you can turn off and on remix mode. What that's doing is basically giving me time to put more words in the prompt. I find this is useful for iteration. Some people don't want to do it. So it's really up to you, but these settings are always available for you to change. I hope that made sense, and we're gonna talk back through the rest of Midjourney now. Any questions up to this point, feel free to throw them in the chat, and then we're gonna have a little bit of a conversation about some of the more fun ways that you can try and apply some of these modifiers. So there are lots of ways to basically mod your algorithms. Algorithmic modifiers are used to improve those outputs, and that can include both generative works in Midjourney, but there are also ways to do that using the Dream Studio beta that I showed you earlier. And we're going to look a little bit at that as well. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that screen now, because it's useful to look at different tools and how they work differently. I find that it does help when you are refining your process to have some different reference points in terms of how things work well. So we're going to go to Dream Studio for just a second. Now, Dream Studio is using the open source Stable Diffusion models with their own interface. Stable Diffusion is one of the better known open source toolkits. However, the interfaces are what you end up having to pay for, because those are the work of small teams of coders and need server and support. So you're going to find, if you tried to use beta.dreamstudio.ai, that's what this is here. And I'm going to take you through very quickly, because those algorithmic modifiers I showed you in Midjourney also exist here on the right side of the screen. So in Midjourney, you put all those algo mods after the comma at the end. Here in Dream Studio and in Stable Diffusion, we're going to toggle those things. So I might change my aspect ratio or what the type of image size that I'm looking for. I might change what they call the CFG scale, which is how much like my original image will it be. So CFG scale adjusts how much the image will be like your prompt. Higher values keep your image closer to your prompt. So less artistic license, more chaos, that sort of thing. Steps are closer to the percentage that you saw in Midjourney, and basically how many steps it's taking to get to that generative work. Now, you have a great deal of power over how many steps you might get here in Stable Diffusion and in Dream Studio. There are ways to change this in Midjourney as well, and we'll look at that shortly. Number of images, this could be 2, 3, or 4. Let's try and do 3 this time. And when it says model, you will see that there's a number of versions of Stable Diffusion. Each of them are built on different data sets and might have different rules. For example, some are more or less safe for work, for example, or might have better controls around certain things. Now, the other piece that I've done here as part of my prompt is I have added an image. And we're going to talk a little bit about image prompts, but in this case, I have added an image that is from a generation I did in Midjourney from an original drawing from 1902. So that might make no sense whatsoever. And I apologize, I need to show you this whole window because not showing you the window doesn't work at all. So let's talk through a little bit of this together in Dream Studio. So what you are seeing here on the right side, width, height, CFG scale, steps, number of images. So I'm going to be doing 3. And then I've put my image in, which is that Midjourney image, along with my prompt. And in this case, I have written how to describe this scene. This is a theatrical scene that I'm trying to conceive. So then I click Dream, and we're going to see what I get. And Dream Studio, this is a version called Dream Studio Lite. You can pay for it if you're trying to get something that is more detailed and obviously to do a higher output versus doing just a few images. So I wanted you to see this because this is obviously quite different than the original image, and it took it in some very interesting directions, but maybe not what I was going for. Interesting though. Whether that works for you, this is why people often like to try different tools. So anyone who wants to jump in and share your screens, I'm going to give you some time to do that in just a minute. But we're going to talk a little bit about those mods real quick and how they work in Midjourney as well. And then we can go through what some of the other ways in which you can use to improve what you're getting out of a prompt. So aspect ratios, this is the same as in any other graphic design field. You can set, for example, to be in 3:2, 9:16, a portrait or a landscape layout. Generally with Midjourney, you're going to get maybe 500 pixels each way on the first generation, 1,000 on a first generation upscale, and even at a max upscale, you're going to get something at most 2,000 pixels out of it. So if you're trying to get to a higher output, we do send those to second tools for upscaling. There's a number of upscaling tools, and I can send you those if you need them. So please note that in Midjourney, ratios are normalized. So you can use the pixels or you can use the ratio. In both cases, this is what you're going to get at those resolution levels. And that's for Midjourney. Going back to what Stable Diffusion looked like, I, on the top of that page, can then modify and say, I'm looking for a width of 896 and a height of 1024. And it's just going to tell me it's going to charge me more credits to do that. So that's basically how the economics of it work within Midjourney versus like a Stable Diffusion style product. Your mileage may vary with all of these tools, and I just want to be super honest with you there because they are changing so fast, and how they are managing with iteration is changing as well. But for baseline, Stable Diffusion is an open source. There are a number of GitHub repos that you can use to build your own interfaces for that, and some people are also using Google Colab notebooks. Or their own version of Stable Diffusion on their home computers if they've got a reasonably strong, like a gaming rig or something with a really great graphics card. I wouldn't try to run Stable Diffusion on anything less than a recent Mac or a good gaming rig if you're trying to run it on your own. And that's why we do these sort of intro things where you can try things on the web. So upscaling, you're going to find your mileage may vary. You are going to definitely get better image quality out of the first round of upscales out of Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. However, when you go to a secondary upscaling tool like Topaz or any of the web upscaling tools, you can get to something that's ready to print. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. So this is sort of the meat on the bone here when it comes to how to really do something fun. And so I want to give you time to try this. And this works in most of the tools that we've described today. So whether you are in Midjourney or you are in Stable Diffusion, or you are using the Dream Studio or Diffusion Land. Diffusion Land, I think, is the only one that isn't going to give you an image prompt option today. So Diffusion Land we'll discuss in a little bit, but it lets you compare between tools very well. When we're talking about an image prompt, that's basically using an image at the front of your prompt to create any number of new generations. Midjourney allows you to do up to 5 images as image prompts, and you can basically put them in order by weight. That gives you, for example, the first one has the highest weight, second one has the second highest weight, and you can mix images. So for example, this is using 2 tulip images in their version, but I was able to mix a picture of myself with Star Trek characters in order to get something that looks like me as a Star Trek character, right? And you can also just try an image prompt of your name and ask for a Star Trek character or something along those lines, and you're going to be able to begin the process. So in Midjourney, if you're trying this for the first time, you have to put a JPEG or a PNG URL at the front. You can have those in carets if it helps you, but you do not have to. It does read them both ways. However, Midjourney will not accept certain types of images, especially things that are not safe for work. Now, I will show you how this works in Discord itself, because there are ways in which you can make this pretty simple and easy. But let's stop this screen share, and I'm going to bring in a whole different screen for you. How y'all doing out there? I'm going to bring a few of you in. So if you want to speak and be in the chat together, and you want to enable your webcam or your screen sharing, you can do that in the next few minutes. And just drop me a line in the private chat and I will add you, because we will have some time to do a few questions and activities together as well. So I am going to jump back into Discord really quick. And let's add that to our screen so that we've got you here. All right, back to Discord. Thank you for your patience today. So I hope this Discord interface makes sense to you. I know for a lot of folks it really does not, and we're going to walk through a little bit of what you see, for example, in this example prompt as a sort of test case of what you can do with this, and then we're going to look at how to add an image prompt really quick. So when you get an image back, for example, there's a website attached to every image in Midjourney. So the image that I got back, I can make variations. I can light upscale, beta upscale, or I can go to the website at Midjourney where this is hosted. Now, if I want to make variations and add a photo or an image, I can do that as well. There are 2 pretty easy ways. You can do it just straight from the image prompt window here, and then I just have to have the URL of that image I'm looking for. Now I've already done that up here earlier, so let's go back up to the image I used to start, and I'm going to show you a little bit of how this works. So as I mentioned, I was designing something where I was looking for an Art Deco kind of look and feel. And I went back, I have a number of antiques and things here. And so I went into a book I have from 1902 and some Art Deco style imagery that I was able to basically sample as an image prompt. And we're going to dive. What you're seeing here is a whole series based on an image prompt in my home. So here's that image of the woman from magazine 1902, which I can show you here. So this is a zine that I found and sourced an image from, and then I put a picture of it in, and I scanned it and said, okay, now we're going to use this. And in order to use it, I needed the URL in it. So by sending it to Midjourney directly, that was the easiest way for me to do it, because then I can just copy the link. Now, you don't have to send this. It can be any image straight on the web, but basically what it needs is that it needs everything to the JPEG, and then I can say Art Nouveau theatrical scene. And please let me know if you can see that. I know that it is a little small. I can try and zoom in a little bit more if it's not very visible. But what I've done basically is I started with the JPEG from the 1902, and then I added a couple of words to guide it toward what I was looking for. Now, you can see it's quite slow. Image prompts I have found are generally a couple degrees slower. Yeah, all right. So I think we can do a couple of different sort of interactive sessions to learn how to control these details. And I'm going to take you through as well how to just add an image directly. So you see where this plus sign is at the bottom at the prompt. I'm going to upload a file. And let's say, you know, it can be anything you've got on your hard drive, really. But I have an image in mind, so I'm going to go get it. And then once you have uploaded an image, it's going to have that URL for you to use. So now I've taken this image, which was a Midjourney image from the summer, and I can then click on it and use it as an image prompt as well. Basically, I am right-clicking on the image and then copying the link. And then I'm going to come down here and use it as the very first text in my prompt. Now, this is a PNG file. It'll be fine. And I don't even have to add any words for it to create off of an image. Now, what did it tell me, though? It says you cannot use version 4 with a single image prompt. Versions 3, 2, and 1, yes. So then in this case, I'm going to do the exact same thing I just did, but I'm going to give it a word or two. So in this case, I'll say Art Nouveau again. And while art styles might be a good way to start off if you're trying to go in a specific world building direction, you may find that the types of prompts you need to use are very different. So I want you to feel free to experiment and really fill in the gaps for whatever works for you. You know, I personally don't like to use proper names, especially people who are living, unless I have their permission or unless they're a client of mine. So that is your choice. We will talk a little bit about how to use artists' work as inspiration as well. But I wanted you to see, for example, the kinds of things that I am able to get out of an image prompt. And Susan, I'm going to bring you in shortly because this is a good time where we could do a little screen sharing. So if you're ready for me, Susan, I'm going to add you to stream.
Can you hear me?
I can, Susan. And
yay! Oh, hi.
Hi, if you want, I don't know if you have it up on your screen, but you are welcome to screen share and I can bring it up as well.
And then
I wanted to give you some time to answer a question and do some things together as well.
Screen share.
So we're just doing this activity together. Try this in your own window, whichever windows you're using. Now, image weights do work differently in Stable Diffusion and in DALL-E, but this is how they work in Midjourney. You use two hyphens, and then IW, and I'll talk you through that. Okay, let's add Susan's window. And
so I didn't load an. I didn't
of us and just look at the window. There we go.
I didn't load an image. Is that okay?
That's fine. We can talk through it together if you'd like.
Okay. So I'm trying to come up with like a city scene. And for instance, let's say I want to get rid of the clouds, or I want to get rid of the color red.
So palette sometimes works better in positive than in negative.
Okay.
So putting it the colors that you want it to use, you can either use the words or even like emoji buttons, like so a blue button. Like if you want the scene to be more blue, you can either use the word blue, and I would use it in the first 10 words. But generally, anything that you need to say no to, you're going to put it at the very end of those parameters. Basically, after the last comma, it's going to read parameters, and any parameter you're going to put 2 hyphens, and then if it's a negative, like a no farms, no red, you would say hyphen hyphen no red. And
okay.
People have found that sometimes they need to do this separately and cut and paste. As I've heard, it can be tricky on the Mac. So that is some feedback if it's not working for you the way you expected.
So I'm not even clear how to get to a prompt. Like I want to work from this one.
Okay, great. Okay, so you've got an image to work from. Can you copy the link?
Like this?
Yep. There you go. Okay, great. So now we're going to make sure we can see your image prompt. So now at the bottom window there where the plus sign is, yep, you're going to type / imagine. Yep, and it's going to come up. Just go ahead and auto click on what it came, right? Go ahead and auto, yeah, there we go. Okay. Now you're going to put your control paste your image there first. For some reason, it's put the word prompt there twice, so you might want to, because you typed it in, then it auto recognized it too. It does that sometimes. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Yep. Now cut and paste that image, and then give it at least 1 to 3 words to qualify what you're looking for from that image. So maybe something about the palette or something else. It did a prompt of the word prompt. That's great.
Oh.
That's cool. Okay. So now you've got the image and you've got the word plants.
Can I do like clear sky? And then
yes.
Yes.
And then after plants, clear sky, then you can do a comma and you can put any other modifiers. Any of those algorithmic modifiers you're looking for there. So no red would be an algorithmic modifier at the end.
So would I do clear sky in quotes? So it
no, you don't need to do clear sky in quotes. You're going to do it by itself. And really, you don't use quotes unless you're trying to get text on there, and it's really tricky to do text. There's some tricks around it, but I wouldn't use quotes at all. So yeah, let's try that, and then do comma, and then space, 2 hyphens, no space farms, or no red. Sorry, no red. And let's see if that gets to putting no red in your image. All right, let's see how that works. Okay. And yeah, positioning and how to arrange objects is really tricky, and composition things. And so Sam's asking a question about composition. We're going to dive into a little bit of that at the end as well. But you see how the red disappeared. So we did get rid of the red by using no red at the end. So that's a pretty good example you were able to get to using the image. Now, you see what it's done is it hasn't really pulled that much of your image forward.
Yeah.
So this is where image weights are going to help you. And we're going to talk a little bit about image weights next. But I'm going to go ahead and bring my slides back up. And you can feel free to stay with me or drop off and do as you wish here. But let's add my stream back. Okay, so IW at the end So the same place where you put no red, you can do -IW with a value between 0.5 and 5 in order to weight the image more or less. And these are, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And honestly, the best place I have found that describes image prompts is in the actual Git book that Midjourney publishes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but that link is right here. So midjourney.gitbook.io is a fantastic resource. And it's one of those things where if you are looking for how to really fine tune around image weights or composition, right? So Sam, some of the things you're asking about as well, you're going to find here in this guide. So Sam, if you're into coming into the show as well, are you cool with that? I think so. All right. I'm going to bring you in, Sam, and then hi. And feel free to jump off anytime. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to make sure that we answer some questions together while we have each other here. So image weights, Susan, we're going to dive into just a little bit of the Midjourney Git book because I think that their description of this is really the best. But I would recommend to all of you, and let's go ahead and put that in a larger form.com. It's midjourney.gitbook.io. And anything you're struggling with in terms of algorithmic modifiers or changes to Midjourney, you're going to find here first. So this is their technical documentation, and as they're making changes, they're keeping it up to date. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Hey, Sam, do you want to tell us a little bit about your question and what you're working on?
So is my audio working?
You're great. You're great.
Okay, great. So I'm just kind of like, I've dabbed, like the last time I really messed with this stuff was GPT-1, like about 10 years ago. And I was generating like science fiction, architectural Buddhist temples, and like just weird, like Buckminster Fullerene style, like religious architectural, like weird mashups of different architectural concepts with religious architecture, because I think religious architecture has a lot of interesting things going on with it. So, but anyways, I've been seeing the stuff that people have been doing where they have like swarms of things erupting out of other stuff, or you'll have like people have figured out how to describe to Midjourney or whichever system how to describe like these swarms of birds. What are they called? There's a special word for that where you have like a bunch of crows, like murmuration. Yeah. So like people figured out how to generate that kind of swarm behavior in Midjourney, and I'm just I've messed around with different words and I'm just not getting it. Totally. But I don't know if you've got any tips for me.
I do. And I want to make sure that we are seeing the right slides here. So I'm going to take y'all through really quick my Midjourney account because this might help inform some of how to try and use those sort of things differently. Sam, like you, I'm really interested in things like temples and how we can imagine both the connections between things over time and sort of the places where all of those wisdom traditions meet. And so a lot of what you're seeing here are a mix of influences. When you've been in Midjourney for some time, you will find that the website itself is a very good archive. It provides a way for you to find in my case, 25,000 plus images that I've generated over the last 6 months. Some of these are straight up from images, and some of them come out of what we call the daily theme in Midjourney, which is an actual channel in Midjourney where people are riffing on themes. And so
I think today was null and void.
Right. So some of that sort of flocking mechanism that we're seeing in the community grows out of the daily theme, and like having 1,000 people generating on the same idea at the same time. And then some of it, like a lot of my crystalline works, I found inspired other artists, right? So by using words like crystalline, but not just crystalline, crystal core, I sort of inadvertently started inspiring other people to use that word as well, right? And this is where I try to encourage people to understand that sometimes these things are like jazz because it's public. And once somebody sees you do something, they pick it up. And so, like those mandala owls I did this week, 3 other people have sent me their mandala owls already, right? Because it is a very easily portable and shareable way of communicating. It is like a new form of jazz, and people will riff on it.
If I could just interject really briefly, like from what I understand, this is a emergent phenomenon that is sprung out of security needs, in terms of like, oh, we have these models that can generate anything of anybody, and we want to make sure that people aren't using it for nefarious purposes, for generating blackmail, for trying to psychologically terrorize people, that kind of stuff. And so they've said, oh, you can't do X, Y, and Z on our system. And so that's why you use different tools from different systems to kind of make up for the gaps in each one. But yeah, right. All of it. But as an emergent phenomenon, you get this community of people that if you want to do things privately, you have to pay extra.
Right.
But if you are willing to let your work be semi-public, then you can just sort of riff off of other people's stuff, and they just have leaderboards for weird concepts. It's very fun.
Yes. Yeah. So this guy obviously has way too many legs, right? It's fascinating to me watching people, see an idea and riff on it. And I would encourage you to create in public and share at least some of what's inspiring you. Artists take lots of different processes there in terms of whether they share their prompts or not. I don't want to tell you that one way is right or wrong. I would encourage you not to step on other people's copyright, and certainly don't pass off other people's work as your own, and be transparent about your process up to the point where you feel comfortable doing so while maintaining your own sort of creative juice. I think we've often thought of art as being a relatively solo practice, and this is collective. This is collective intelligence. It is fundamentally different. So I just want to, invite us to think differently about what that looks like in terms of who we are and what we're becoming as well. Sam, I don't think I answered your question exactly. So
it's okay. It's kind of a big question. So I just wanted to put it out there and see what let you riff on it.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm going to dive back into the Midjourney documentation really quick, because I want to get to some of those parameters and image weights and things while we have each other together. So I'm going to jump back over to that window. And here we go. As I mentioned before, the Midjourney Gitbook, which we're looking at right now, is the best resource for how to develop around improving your prompt craft and getting to something that that's fascinating.
Sorry.
No worries, all good. So what we're looking at very quickly, I just want to show you not only aspect ratio, but other algorithmic modifiers. The V is for version, V1, V2, V3, V4. HD, high definition. So that's possibly better for larger images. It might be less consistent. We talked about the word no, which is what we did with Susan, taking out the red. Stop, which will give you less steps. For example, it's basically stopping the generation at 60% instead of going all the way to 100%. And then there's certain uplighting, and we looked at a little bit of those different types of upscaling as well, the being able to improve on that. Now, using seeds, we don't usually cover in this class, but I would encourage you, if you're trying to get to consistency or storytelling, you might want to develop off using a seed. And this is, again, just trying to get to more consistency in your character and product design. So stylize and seed are especially useful if you're trying to do something that might look more illustrated or painterly, but also consistent if you're trying to do something like a book. So Q1 and Q2 will give you more detailed results, but it's slower and more expensive. So that's what I was using, but you could see it took over a minute versus you should be able to get a relatively quick prompt back in under a minute otherwise. And there are progress videos, which some people like to use. And what we just talked about, which was image prompting. And then let's look just a little bit at those image weights. So image weight 0.5, 1, 2, and 5 develop differently. So an image weight of 5 gives you something that's extremely abstract. An image weight of 0.5 gives you something that's very similar to your image. So I have found you do need to experiment with some of these, but that's your spectrum in terms of getting something that's closer to your image or further away. So I hope that part made sense. Feel free to jump in if you've got any other questions, and then we're going to jump into looking at some of those style guides and some of the other ways in which that you might get a better response back if you're trying to do something a little bit more challenging. So all right, number one, I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of this. By the way, just a quick update. We have been watching Promptcraft 1. I'm going to give you just a quick video. All right. So we are diving back in, and I am adding a style guide for you here that we're just going to take a quick look at here. Style guides help some people quite a bit when they're looking for inspiration or source material. I don't always go this route personally, but some people find that they really need that. So in a style guide like this, there are different books, Trained Artist V3, Trained Artist V4. So for example, in V3, we know that we've got all of these existing artists are sort of trained to the model. And by going through, we can begin to see what those names would result. So if you're typing the name of an artist style, it might yield something that looks like this. Now, these style guides are really dense, and there's obviously hundreds, if not thousands, of names in here and lots of different things you can choose from. I'm going to encourage you to go through at your own time to look at what that looks like and how you might want to do that. I personally don't use those in my own work. However, I have in the past referenced formerly living architects, and your mileage may vary on whether that's right for you. So I just wanted to encourage you to think about whether you want to use names and proper names in your own work as well.
And then what about training your own model? Is that something that's possible?
Stable Diffusion.
Stable Diffusion. So currently, we focus mostly on Midjourney in this class. Stable Diffusion can be installed on your own machine. I believe the Mac announced support for Stable Diffusion built in today. So
nice.
Yeah,
there's the M2, the M series.
Yeah. So there's there are people using both gaming rigs and Macs for Stable Diffusion. I'm told it can happen on Linux, but I haven't personally.
Oh, I'm using. Well, I have I'm on my desktop right now, and then I have a laptop that someone gifted me because they didn't know how to upgrade a hard drive. And it has a $1,300 GPU in it, and I can run Stable Diffusion on it.
All right.
So yeah,
I love hearing that, and I love hearing people being creative with trying to find new methods. But Stable Diffusion is open source, and if you use Google Colab Notebook, and then you're just paying for the servers, or you can do it on your own machines. That would be the way to get around some of these limitations currently within the Midjourney system. You can generate unlimited, but it's $30 a month. So that's sort of where it's at. I wanted to give you a couple of different fun things you might want to try to expand what you're currently doing. These are fun words that might give you a completely different result. There are a handful of good speakers. This is Olivier Sarkis, who's got a good YouTube channel on different style types and what you might want to try there. So house from the 1929 year. Now that syntax is really interesting because it's not how we speak, but it's important to say 1929 year. It's going to help. And
yes.
then comma, isometric illustration, right? So subject, comma, style. And that's a really nice, clean way, under 10 words to get what you're looking for. And then in this case, he's taking all of these and making, game boards and maps and things like that. So that's a fun exercise. You want to try that. Typography. So some folks like to play with a wide variety of typography. I'm going to pull this out so you can actually see some of these. But young, handsome man typography. Any of these typography arts are going to give you different styles. You can really change the color scape in these. But I would recommend trying, if you're looking for editorial type images, this can be really fun. Obviously, this is stuff that people can't make in places like Lenza. And sorry, I'm going to mute you, Sam, but just let me know when you're ready to unmute. I'm going to unmute that. But anything like this is going to give you something that you're not going to get out of a traditional app like a Lenza or the sort of things that people are trying right now on their phone. Coloring books are a really fun way to try something, especially if you want to generate something unique for your family members over the holidays. You can take some of your images of your family and your picnics and make a coloring book and give it to grandma. That is something I know at least one or two folks are working on right now. So yeah, subject, comma, coloring book. That's all it takes. And then you might need to go in there and mess with your lines, but you've at least got something you can play with. So I hope those give you some ideas that you can try. I like to use words like diagrammatic. I do infographics. I like obviously using poster, die cut, anything that helps with sort of editorial lens, and also things that help with like a photography or a cinematic lens. So it could be a 50 millimeter or using stage cues like close up, two shot, anything that might be found in a screenplay can be used to help the AI sort of set up the shot as if the AI were your cinematographer, right? So you're just thinking about those instructions as being after the subject. So subject, comma, here's some style detail and some cinematic detail, comma, and then all of those other modifiers at the end. So did that make sense? I'm going to stop back for questions, and I'll unmute you, Sam, by the way. And anyone else who wants to jump in, we have about 12 minutes left, and we can absolutely take some more questions and discuss a few pieces you might be struggling with as well.
Yeah, I've used LaTeX to typeset and lay out small technical documentation manuals and things like that. So the idea of, I can easily see how you could take Midjourney and use it as a tool to create, at the very least, placeholder images for all kinds of things. Like I do a little web design on the side. I can use Midjourney to create placeholder images for stuff so that I don't have to go out and take pictures with my camera. Like it just saves me a ton of time just experimenting with visual stuff. Like I can just create stuff quickly. It's wonderful.
I love hearing that. So, if y'all need support, by the way, on custom world building or custom projects, I do a pretty wide variety of those here in my design lab. I'm in Oakland, right on the Emeryville line, and you're welcome to come in here anytime. Or if you have colleagues who need that support layer, I just want to put that out there that world building, stories, everything in the strategy and concept development. Where that meets your projects, we can figure it out. But that can be by the hour, the day, the week, any number of projects. And that's a little bit of how we roll all of those sort of pieces here together. I'm going to jump back into the Midjourney interface really quick because there's a few more things I wanted to show you while I'm here. If you decide to jump into Midjourney, you have an archive and you have a number of tools here that can be super useful. The community feed is everybody, and you may or may not want to deal with that. I personally, I don't spend a lot of time in the community feed, but other people are really fed by it. Some of those sort of flocking and swarming behaviors certainly do happen because of the community feed. But you can see even my feed, this is people I'm following because I thought that their work was interesting, but they're very diverse. You have bookmarks and you have ways to sort of save specific types of work. So in this case, I've saved a pretty wide variety of works from different eras. So here we're going all the way back to now the spring, and when Midjourney was new, you can see, for example, I couldn't draw cats at all. So this gives me a little bit of a way to kind of go back through time and history, and I can see that, for example, the kind of crystalline architectures I've been doing now, inspired by an architect that I really like down in South America, I was able to, take that and then bring it into the world building that I'm doing now. Even though this image itself isn't highly detailed, I can then take it out into other tools to do that. So I think, were there any other questions that I missed? Please put those in the chat. And I'm realizing I think I've missed probably 2 or 3 other comments in other windows. And so I'm going to do my best to try and collect everyone. But as we do, we do our best. It's been really lovely to connect with all of you and to figure out exactly how this is going to flow with the rest of your work. If you need specific support on what these prompts look like, let's dive a little bit more into that, because some of what I'm doing here with the prompt, you can absolutely copy and paste. And these are tools that might help you get started. So this is from a graphic novel I was working on some concepts around. And when I go to click on it, you can see I can get the full command, which is everything that I might want to put into Discord. Or I can get the prompt, or I can get the job ID. And each of those are useful for different types of things. In this case, I want to copy the prompt and then put that back in my Discord. And then I can basically try new versions of the exact same image from that as well. So I'm going to do that really quickly and show you what that looks like. Add to stream. Oh, no, that's Susan's. Not Susan's. We're going to add mine. That's what happens when we've got too many windows being shared. All right. So let me show you specifically my Discord. Now, once you've taken a prompt and have copied it, you can basically just, copy, paste, and modify. And that is what this is going to look like here. So I've copied that image from before. Now, because this image doesn't have the reference image, I have only copied the prompt. It's going to give me something that looks fundamentally different than that first image. If I had wanted to riff and variate from that first image, I would want to go back to the original seed. And this is something that's really important, and why most times, even if you're copying a prompt, you're not copying someone's work. The work isn't going to be the same twice. That is not necessarily the case in all tools, but that is the case in Midjourney. So in this case, I am going to get a headshot of a man standing in awe with this crystalline environment, but it is not going to be really anything close to the same image, except that some of those things might look a little bit similar. It looks like a different man, for example.
I actually like to start when I'm working with Midjourney. I actually like to start with the same seed parameter, and I just put a number. I usually just start with pi, like 3.1415, whatever, and it doesn't really matter what you put in. It just has to be an integer, and you just start with that. And then once you get a nice stable prompt, then you remove the seed parameter and you let it kind of variate, and then you get a lot of good stuff.
So by clicking to copy and bring in that whole prompt versus just the seed, you do get a fundamentally different output. And I'm going to see if I can show that to you really quick. So I've done both versions, but you can see the first version that came out obviously looks different. And this is where what Sam was saying exactly right with characters. If you're trying to do a story and you want consistency across the board, using a single seed is going to give you closer to the same character and the same types of layouts. Now, you can build now hundreds or thousands of images, then take those in to make your own models in Stable Diffusion, and then create your world from there. Take that to another generative tool for 3D building or metaverse building or any other type of multimedia. So I will say that the video, 3D, and metaverse Promptcraft tooling is alpha or beta at this stage at best. But within the next year, we're going to see many of those tools developed and available for the public so that you would be able to do this, build your model, and then generate from there, and generate videos and stories and worlds, not just images. Did that bring up some interesting questions? We don't see your screen. Do you see my screen now, by the way? I think
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm so sorry. It's tricky jumping back and forth with Discord. And unfortunately, Discord is not great for streaming, but we do our best there. I wanted you to at least get a sense of what happens when you copy, because even if you are copying someone's prompt, you're not really copying their work. And I would encourage you to riff and take it in different directions so that it is fundamentally different. It's like ripping off somebody's joke in comedy. Like, nobody likes somebody who just rips off everybody else's jokes. So it's fun to think about how people inspire you, but then you can take it and riff it in new ways.
I feel like it's very much like how when, you know, some new comedian comes out with a joke and then everybody says, oh, that's so funny, and they tell it to their friends and family, and their friends and family haven't heard it before, so it's funny. But that's about all it's really good for. After a certain point, you got to make up your own joke.
It does help as well to credit people if they've inspired you, so that you know, many of us are inspired by living artists, and it builds goodwill if you can say, hey, I was inspired by this artist to go in this direction. Mm-hmm. Many artists feel that these tools are corrosive to their livelihoods, and your job in some cases is to figure out how to communicate that in a way that speaks to how you've been inspired. Because I know that many of you are creators and have been creators for decades, and you don't really see it as like art versus non-art. It's more a spectrum of tooling here. And now y'all are jazz musicians. Instead of just being musicians, you're riffing in a different way. And that's okay. It's okay to use tools in a different way. But the best practices do include crediting people if you, for example, used their image in any way at all. And, you know, whenever I use someone's image or I mention a person in prompt, I do share it with them. I almost never do that with physical and living people. But for example, Pee Wee Herman did a weird little rave set with him and sent it to him because I knew he liked AI art and that it would make it laugh. So it's better to be a little more transparent, I found, than to be, hiding around those kinds of ideas. But, everyone does it differently. Your mileage may vary. So that's some of what you're getting here. I just wanted to show you the sort of what that looks like. There is a very detailed prompt with a cinematic note giving you some sense of, what's in the foreground, what's in the background, how to work with qualifiers as well. Were there any other questions? I think we're just about out of time, but it's really been great to see you all. And we will stop the stream in just a moment, and I will open up our mics and we can be not the recording, but just talking. So just let me know if any of this strikes something for you where I can support you and I can help you build out a project, or if you need help with anything in particular. This is how to reach me. So ego.ist is the easiest way, or Ego Playable Agency. That would be the best way to reach out to me. And I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. But any of you who are here in the room right now, you are welcome to basically